And your turn. I like Joe Wallace. My dad.
All right, all right. So far, so good. All right.
Lauren. He served in the army. How do you know? And he signed up for the VFW last night. Okay. I think we put too much information out now.
All right. I'll get the rest. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Be careful. All right. Yes. As my girl said, my name is Joe Lawless, known as the triplets dad, or the guy who lives across the street from Aiden. Right? I'll tell you a little bit about myself before we get started with the military history, from my military history to kind of what I do now, which kind of led me up to this point. After I left the military, I went into law enforcement. Spent 25 years in law enforcement, retired last year. The last 6 years in law enforcement, I taught DARE in the schools. So every year, I had about 1,800 kids that I spoke to. I had the 3 largest schools in the city of Shawnee. So there were a lot of kids, a lot of classrooms, a lot of questions, a lot of germs, all kinds of stuff. But the thing is, what led me down that path was something that happened when I was your age. The cool things are influences that happen to you at a young age kind of inspire you when you get older. Is everybody in this room the same? We're all different, aren't we? And it's okay to be different, isn't it? Yes, it is. I am dyslexic. So when I was in grade school, I had to go down to a tutor. Well, my tutor, Mrs. Harrison, was married to a Downers Grove. I grew up in Chicago, right outside Chicago, city of Downers Grove, was a Downers Grove police officer. And he used to come in and eat lunch with Mrs. Harrison and us in the room we used to go to. And I thought that was the neatest thing in the world, that there's a police officer taking the time to come in to eat with his wife and spend time with us. So those are the kinds of things that I remember that kind of brought me to where I wanted to go in the future and make me work a little bit harder at it. Because, as we just said, we're all different, aren't we? No one's the same. So we all have to work our own way to get where we want in life. And some might have to work just a little bit harder like I did. But it's okay. It's okay to be different. And that was part of the thing that I taught when I was doing the DARE was bullying, because a lot of times people don't realize that we are different. But let's go to the military. Now that we kind of covered that, I'm still part of that. Still part of the DARE guy, I guess. Yes. I graduated high school early, believe it or not. I was 17 years old. I was supposed to graduate in Chicago. We didn't graduate until June, the first week of June. I actually graduated in January 1985 instead of with the rest of my class, because I had enough credits, because I worked hard enough, and I already knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into service. So the quicker I could get there, the better off it was going to be for me. So my parents signed the paperwork. I was 17 years old, went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and I'm right there. That's the drill sergeant walking with his hand, just pointing fingers, telling people to do, yelling, screaming. Not happy camper I was at 17 years old. But that's Fort Benning, Georgia in 1985, and that's where I started my military. After the military, I left there and went to Germany. I was in Germany for 18 months. This was during the Cold War, and I don't know what part of the history you guys have gone through yet or what you've learned, but I was actually at a Pershing II nuclear missile site. They were mobile nuclear missiles. My job, I was an infantryman. My job there was per platoon, like classroom, basically. A platoon is kind of like a classroom. My job, our jobs are slotted with numbers and letters. I was referred to as an 11 Bravo. Well, I was the only one, 11 Bravo, in my platoon. I was in charge of all the security for that missile because it's a mobile missile when it went to what we call the field. So if something were to happen, these missiles are on the back of trucks, and we go out and we set up, camouflage, and if luckily nothing ever happened, but if it did, we would be able to launch those missiles from an undisclosed area and not where we were at. But this was also boot camp. This is part of the training. This is a rope slide, basically sliding down. We had to go over a river. Very young, camouflage at that time, but that's, once you go, there's no going back. But they're fun. They're fun. This is actually one of the missiles that's underneath the camouflage. This is myself here. I actually, on my whole back, I have leaves. Well, part of my job was to actually try to sneak up on the perimeters that I would set up with the other soldiers there and see if I could get to their point without them noticing me after I set everything up to see if there was any breaches or whatnot that took place. So that was it. I kind of went in there and did that. And this is the actual missile underneath the camouflage. Now, these missiles are we no longer have them. As soon as I left Germany, they signed a bill to take them out. I wish they would have done that 18 months sooner, but they did not. It was a tough deal. It was a lot. When we weren't in the field with the missiles, we were up what was referred to CAS site, where the missiles were actually in silos and stuff like that. And we would go up there for 30 days locked in, and then when we came back down, we'd go up for another 2 weeks. We'd have to pull guard duty on the outside, 2 hours on, 4 hours off for 2 weeks straight. So basically, you're on perimeter, you're walking around for 2 hours. By the time you get relieved, you go back to your bed. You have about an hour and a half to 2 hours of sleep before you're back up and doing it again. That's 2 weeks straight. So, but that prepared me for the 3 girls that came from my sleep deprivation when you were born, if I only knew that. So, the town I was in, and I love history. I'm a big history guy. Growing up in Chicago, we used to take field trips to the museums every year, and that's what kind of inspired me to what I do now for my hobby and some things I do for the VFW and for the VA. This is the city of Heidelberg. Large population. During World War II, Heidelberg was ordered by Adolf Hitler to turn on all the lights, and nobody knew why. So the whole town lit up. The next morning, this is what it looked like. U.S. planes came and bombed and eliminated the city of Heidelberg because the target was Stuttgart. And Hitler did not want Stuttgart to be bombed, so they blacked out the city of Stuttgart and they lit up Heidelberg. And we basically destroyed the wrong town because it was blacked out, and during World War II, you go by maps, but as lit as it was, the U.S. bombers thought that was the city. And this was at one of the museums. I'm a history buff. I love going to those things. So, but this is part of the history of the town I was in. Even during World War II, there's history of it, and a lot of war history from the town I was there. I don't know what picture's next. After I left Germany, I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I was with the 101st Airborne Division. While I was with the 101st, we woke up one morning and they load us up on, they call them cattle trucks. Basically, we were considered cattle, load them up in the back of trucks. And we went to supply, and they started issuing us jungle fatigues. if you were lucky enough, and jungle boots. I received one pair of jungle fatigues, which is it's straight green. It's all green, but it's a thinner material. These are old wool type uniforms. Well, this one was a brand new uniform I went and bought that night before we left because I only received one pair of the jungle fatigues, which are real thin and breathable when we're in a hot area. So this is the brand new style compared to that. So I didn't have all my stuff sewn on. I had my name and I just pinned on my rank, but I still had my airborne. I didn't get my airborne stuff sewn on or anything like this. But what we knew is we were going to Panama the next day. I was with Bravo Company, 2nd and 327th. What happens when, with the 82nd and the 101st, you're on alert status. So if anything happens in the world, if they need soldiers, if you're that 30-day period, we're on alert status. You're the first to go. Well, they had this plan and we didn't know. It was one of these things, and I'm sure your parents have said it before. I say it to my kids, you're on a need-to-know basis. Well, the Army said, you don't need to know what's going on, except to where we're going. So they loaded us up on the planes, and we went to Panama. 5 minutes before we landed and hit ground, they started handing out live ammunition to us with 30-round magazines. Once we touched ground, we exited the plane, and there was another picture, a couple of them. That's us still on the C-130 heading over. We loaded up on these buses, and that's a little bit younger. Myself there. These buses that were painted, the outside was painted just like this. And these windows are actually tinted. We were up in the mountains, but once we went down into Panama City, we had to roll them up so they couldn't look in. What we didn't know at that time was, this was pre-planned, is how are we going to get Bravo Company from point A to point B where we needed to go? Because we were there, and what we didn't know, we were there to back up the CIA and the DEA to get information and intelligence on Emmanuel Noriega with what was going on. This was in 1987. What they decided was to load us up on these buses that were camouflaged with the Jamaican and all the cool stuff, designs on it. And they loaded us up, and they drove us right downtown through Panama City, right where we needed to go. And nobody knew we were on those buses. And we were fully armed. You can see we have our packs on and everything else ready to go. Once we ended up arriving where we needed to go, this is a picture of a jungle. And this is what it looked like. There's no pass. You make your own pass. You have a large knife called a machete, and you go through, and you have a map and whatnot. But our mission there was to find as much as intelligence as we could on this for arms smuggling, drugs, and crimes that were being committed. The unfortunate thing is, you guys are 10, 11 years old, and ladies, we would come up on tiny, we call them hooches, little villages, where kids your age and a little bit older were the ones working, making the drugs. And they had guns. And they have nothing. So they want to fight to keep what they have. So what we did, we were there just over 30 days. We had our units, we had CIA, we had DEA, and we had 2 Rangers and a Special Forces person with us on each patrol we went on. Went in there, found a lot of things. Unfortunately, things happened over there that they shouldn't have, and it's a sad deal, which kind of led me to, again, police work and teaching DARE of stay away from drugs and things like that, because I witnessed it firsthand again in a bad way. It was sad. But the other let's see, the other pictures we have, that's after 29 days of coming back from being in the jungle. Um, and that is, you probably just want to throw that away when I took it off because it just, it was nasty. Um, and that's at one of the barracks, and we ended up going back in. They flew us back in by chopper to where we needed to go. Now, the 101st is considered air assault. So we're an airborne unit, but we don't jump out of planes. We actually repel out of them. So where we go into the jungle, wherever we're going, we don't land. The ropes come out and put a little C-clamp on, sweep seat we put on, and we repel down to where we go. Or if we're going to land on a rooftop or whatever we're going to do, it's called fast roping. The rope's a little bit thicker, kind of like what you have in gym class, but you're wearing gloves and you just grab on and you slide down to the roof. Or you're on tiny little planes or helicopters with seats on the outside, 3 seats, and you have 3 soldiers on both sides of the helicopter, outside of the helicopter, as you're flying, and they drop you and you go. So it's pretty neat stuff. I enjoyed it. I was younger, but now, This is a photo, one of the only photos that survived, and the teachers and some of the older people in here remember the old flat disc cameras that they used to have there. You take the picture and it just come out like a disc. Well, with the humidity and moisture, a lot of them didn't come out. But this is we're on patrol. You can see we're fully loaded. That's my one green fatigue and my green hat, and we are on the beach patrolling, and we're looking for any signs of anybody coming on or, intel that we can get on there. And I was 19 in that picture, but I still had a baby face. Kind of looks like Sarah in a hat, I think. I'm not sure. I don't know, but we'll see. I hurt my knee when I was in Panama. Had to have surgery on it right when we got back from when we were in the jungle. One of our missions we went on, we were receiving fire and duck and cover, and blew part of my cartilage out on one side. But I've been part of, I just joined, and that's over in Germany. That would have been 18 years old over there. And it says Pershing, and that's a Pershing missile, and the uniform that goes over there, and the badges. Like I said, I was fresh over there. And this is the blue badge, or the blue for the infantry, and this is for the field artillery over there. But as I said, I just joined the VFW. I have been a part of the DAV for many years, and that's the Disabled American Soldiers, basically. And I go in, I wish I could. November 7th, I go in again. This will be my 10th surgery on my right knee, still try to correct what is wrong with it. So I'll be gone November 7th from that. But what I really want you to know is, the service, what we do, the freedoms we have, the sacrifices that are made, is for us to be able to wear that green Bobcat uniform to school, to be who we are, to be different, to do things we want to do. And if we don't have the service, if we don't have police forces, if we don't have teachers teaching us right from wrong on a daily basis, are we going to grow up in a great place, a great society? Are we going to have those freedoms? No. So it starts now. You don't have to wait till you're 17, 18 years old to make a difference. You can make a difference now. There are little things, and people remember those for a long time. You're going to have teachers, and you might have one right here, that inspire you to be a teacher. This might be the reason 10 years from now why you're going to the school or graduating. Maybe I guess it would be 10, right? However, we're getting close. So there are many people out there, are so many people out there that can influence things. And I can't stress that enough. The VFW is just a small part. I finally joined them because, as I said, I just retired from the PD. I was part of our fraternal order of police there. I did a lot of things for them. And with the girls and my older son, who's 23, coaching, when I did that, I just did not have a lot of time. But now I do, so I want to help them out and kind of help the new generation of vets that are coming back, along with helping the public, because it's not all about veterans, what they do. It's all about helping. Helping. I can't say that enough. Unfortunately, we live in a time where cell phones are our way of communication through text and this and that. It's more so easy to do that instead of get up, walk outside. If you see somebody, maybe a neighbor that you're friends with, maybe they're a little bit older, helping them take their trash out one day, shoveling their driveway, raking their leaves, little things, being good in school, maybe even doing your homework. Yeah. How big of a smile does your teacher have on a face, or have they had one? Has anybody had a class that had all their homework turned in yet?
No.
On time. Okay, let's go on time. One question. Go ahead, Aiden. Down. Panama. If you look, if we don't have I don't think they have globes anymore in schools. I don't. Do you? Actually, if you follow Mexico all the way down, you're going to wind up towards Panama. Who said Panama Canal earlier? Was it Luke Cooper that was here? I actually had one of the pictures when we went by the Panama Canal with a big ship that was going through it, because it was part of history. But right here. And to go back, the intelligence that we did and the things that we did in 1987 with the CIA and the DEA, actually in 1988, all that information plus more, that's when they indicted Emmanuel Noriega with crimes with drug smuggling and things like that. And that's when Operation Just Cause in 1989, they went in, and it was a war, but they went in and a lot of lives were lost. And he's actually in the prison in Fort Leavenworth, unless they transferred him. That's where he's been all these years. But I know I don't have a lot of time. What I do now in my spare time, up at the VA hospital in Leavenworth, a lot of people don't know this. The VA hospital was one of the first homeless homes for volunteer soldiers, and they were called volunteer soldiers at the time, from the Civil War. Over the last year and a half, I've donated all my time, my own money, gas. I metal detect, and I go out there, and it's for the older people in here. So it's not like I don't wear black socks and slippers and go out there. It's not the stereotype of what it used to be years ago. It's a great hobby, because I get to recover history. And what did I say I love? History. Up at the VA hospital, I have found different buttons. This button right here is from the Civil War, late Civil War, and the American Indian War. What I like about it, what gets my mind going when I used to go in museums, and I look at this, and everybody's going to be able to look at this, because you might not ever be able to touch one of these again in your life. Most people don't. Is I like to think, where has this been? And if this button had eyes and a mouth, what could it see and tell me? The battles, maybe. And the brought us our what? Our freedom. Even though it was a war against our own, but it's still a lot. And this actually just clips in there. It broke off. There's this button right here. I actually found about a month and a half ago at the Tonganoxie Fairgrounds. And this is a World War I button. This is, and I thought it was, I started to get excited because I thought it was the 101st, but they had regiments and they had brigades, and it was the 101 Regiment or Brigade at that time during World War I, and that's the button they used. And I found other things up there you can't see, but this actually has the person's name on it. It actually came off the foot locker from the Civil War vet. And I found that up there. One of the houses up there is the old governor's mansion. When the governor used to come up here, up to Fort Leavenworth, that's where they would stay, or even at the VA. It's sketched in there. You can barely read it. So I've had access. It's a National Historic Landmark. Nobody can go up there and dig up artifacts unless you have permission and whatnot. But since I'm doing this project for them, I've had exclusive rights to go anywhere on that property and dig anywhere I can. And this is all going to them. I'm not keeping any of this. This is all going into a plaque that they're going to have at the VA, and they don't have any memorabilia whatsoever up there to show, except some old photos, what it was like. And Joe Rowe, Mr. Rowe up there, who's in charge of all the new employees, he is so excited that I have all this stuff, including he did not know existed, was a button. When they came back from the war, the Civil War, the Indian War, they had to take this button off their uniform, and they had to sew this one on. And it has the initials around there for the National Western Branch of the Volunteer Soldier, because they were volunteer soldiers at that time. And that's what they had to sew on their uniforms. And Mr. Rowe didn't even know this existed. Either did I until I had to Google it and find out and whatnot. But these are actually more valuable than the buttons itself because they're more scarce. So a lot of history. I love digging history. Because it's where we came from, and if we don't know where we came from, are we going to find out where we're going to go? No, we need to know those things. You know, we need to know those things. Other than that, I can't think of too much else. I know we're running out of time. Anything you want me to hit on?
Any questions?
Oh. Yeah, because we're going to do one more thing before I leave. Go ahead.
Do you have any more buttons?
I have quite a few in here. Quite a few. But they're basically the same thing. This is actually a tin. There's only two known to exist that I was able to dig up there. And you can see it has the initials of the Western Branch of the National Home of Disabled Veteran Soldiers. And that's what it was called when it was founded until the 1930s, I believe, until they changed it to the Northeast Veterans Branch. But this was, and they're still trying to figure out, they're having historians look at it to see if it was actually the Civil War vet's ID tag, his Foot Locker tag, or if it was used in the shops where if they took a tool out, they used to hang it up. But in some of the other facilities that house Civil War vets, they had these for laundry. So, and they had specific people who they didn't have washing machines. You just washed it by hand, but they would drop their stuff off and they would have a tag over a bucket where theirs was at. So they're not sure exactly, but there's two of them. And that's, like I said, they're scared. I even brought these to the museum up in Fort Leavenworth, and they have never seen one before. Pretty neat. Question.
What's arms smuggling?
Oh, well, not arms smuggling, but it's weapons, guns. What he was doing was taking guns, and he was bringing them to people who should not have them, like bad people.
When you were in Germany, did you learn German language?
I can speak let me put it this way, I was able to get to the Bahnhof, which is the train station, and things like that. Now I'm kind of, if I get around somebody if I go to a German restaurant and all of a sudden I start hearing things, I can kind of make out what they are, but to actually speak it anymore, I could get myself to the train station, back to the barracks, Banderhof concern is where I was at, and things like that, or say please and thank you and things like that. Fraulein, I was a GI back then, but you can ask me at home.
In Panama, when you were on those buses, why didn't you want people to know who you were?
Because at that time, we didn't want the Panamanian forces or anybody to know we were actually in the country. So instead of taking us by chopper where we needed to go, knowing that we would be seen and they wouldn't do anything to the helicopters, they did not want the forces, our U.S. forces, to be seen by any of the Panamanian government, because at that time it was corrupt, which means there were bad people who were running it, so we didn't know who was good and who was bad, and who would be on our side and who wouldn't be on our side. So it was a very clever idea, and this, to go that route. Yes. Yeah, we had codes. And yeah.
How did it feel when you had dyslexia when you were little?
How did I feel? I felt alone. I felt alone because I felt like I was the only one, or why couldn't I see and get what other people were doing, how they could get it like this, and I was struggling, and I just, but once I figured out, once I was able to get the help, there was understanding. But this was a long time ago. The times have changed, and a lot of things have come a long way. And I'm not afraid to talk about it, because when I taught DARE, that was part of the bullying, and to making everybody understand that we were all different. If we were the same, this world would be not a fun place. We're all different for a reason.
What is DARE?
DARE is for, have you had a police officer come in and talk to you yet?
No. We were supposed to have one yesterday.
It's Drug Abuse Resistance Education is what it stands for. DARE is, my job as a DARE officer, we had a curriculum that was given by the state that we had to go by, just like the teachers. And we went into schools and we taught them the dangers of drugs, from different types of drugs to, aerosol cans that people use for drugs. We taught bullying, bike safety, everything. We were there, and we were there for a half hour from kindergarten all the way to sixth grade. Sixth grade had a 45-minute class. But you guys ever see the videos or meet Retro Bill? Yeah. I've met Retro Bill many times. The girls actually have a CD with he signed it to them, and a picture and all kinds of cool stuff. And he is a very huge DARE advocate that is out there that promotes the safety, to teach the education, to teach you hopefully the right from wrong, that unfortunately sometimes parents don't have enough time to teach, and things like that. So it's our job as police officers, and for you to see when I work, that we're normal people. We're not bad people. And sometimes the uniform scares people. So when we used to go in schools and teach, and they used to see us, it was great. It was great to have that bond with the kids. Leave. I'm gonna just grab something to drink here. Leave the force. Oh, yeah, that happened. Yeah, they weren't even born. I wasn't even married yet. Sorry, I've got a drink. It was the pizza. Grace. With a metal detector, it pops up as a coin, and like I said, when I actually dug it up, thinking it was a coin, that's what came up. Go from there. Before, I know we're running out of time. Making a difference is huge, huge. When I went metal detecting, I went to an old farm, detected around the old farm. I also kind of buy and sell old furniture and things like that. It's just a hobby. It's a goofy hobby, but it's history. I like doing that. But while one of those adventures I had, I came across a 1953 baseball that was signed by the entire Chicago Cubs. And what week is it? What's everybody wearing?
Red Ribbon Spirit Week. Jersey.
Who's playing tonight? Thank you. I came across a ball signed by the entire team, including Mr. Kaufman, the 1974 Royals. The entire team. Who here do you think has made this group come together as a team? No, your group. Your students, all three classes. What has brought you together this year?
Our teachers and Miss Boyd and everyone in the school.
Very good. What else? Your parents. You're getting close because you raised your hand. I'm giving everybody a hint. What has brought everybody together to do things that maybe you wouldn't have done before? Freedom. Who got their haircuts? I'll start giving hints.
Friendship.
Why did we get our haircuts? Exactly. Say it louder.
Support Hayden Hand. Hi.
And he has brought what? You guys together, right? I heard you just finished your first round of chemo, right? Well, guess what? I hope this inspires you, but this now belongs to you.
Oh.
It's the little things we do in life that go a long way. Right. It's the little things we do in life that will go a long way. And it doesn't take a lot. All right, I'm kind of going back in my dare mode again, and I know we're running out of time. But I want you to think about that. We're all different for a reason. That doesn't mean you need to make fun of people. Doesn't mean you need to bully people. Somebody's having help or a little trouble with their work. We're not going to give them the answers. If we're not supposed to talk, we're not going to talk either. But we can kind of help them out if we need to, if we have time, if it's an open session, if they need help, and not just bypass them. We're here together. All right, help everyone. That's what it's all about. I hope you enjoyed what I brought. I hope you take a little bit what I spoke about today to heart. Okay, and thank you for letting me come in and talk to you today.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry I went over time. I get going, and it's just like back in the day, I just can't shut up.